Welcome back to Silent Confessions, the place where the deepest, juiciest, most forbidden stories come to life. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button because trust me, you don't want to miss what we have coming next. Today's story? Oh, this one is steamy, taboo, and downright dangerous. It's about a guy, a stormy night, and his best friend's 50-year-old mom who had desires that just couldn't be ignored. Buckle up, because this is one wild ride that has to be watched to the end, because the better part will come. I'm Jason, 25, a software developer in Chicago. I've been tight with my boy Ethan since college, and his mom, well, she's one hell of a woman. Michelle is 50, but you wouldn't know it by looking at her. She's got that kind of ageless beauty, the type that makes you stop and stare. Full lips, smooth curves, and eyes that hold a lifetime of secrets. She's always had this aura, something magnetic about her. Every time I visited their house, I found myself talking to her more than Ethan. She'd laugh at my jokes, brush my arm when she walked by, give me those long, knowing glances, but I never really let myself believe she meant anything by it. Until that night. It was a rainy Friday, and I figured I'd swing by Ethan's place, surprise him, maybe chill for a bit. I didn't call ahead, just showed up, but when Michelle opened the door, she looked genuinely surprised and intrigued. Well, look who decided to drop by unannounced, she teased, flashing that signature smile that always made my stomach tighten. Her robe, loosely tied around her waist, shifted slightly as she leaned against the doorframe, revealing the soft curve of her collarbone. The scent of her perfume, something warm and vanilla-laced, hit me like a slow burn. I could feel my pulse quicken as my eyes lingered on her for just a second too long. Thought I'd surprise Ethan, I said, scratching the back of my neck, suddenly hyper-aware of the way she was looking at me. She bit her lip slightly, her tongue flicking over it as if lost in thought. He's not home, but you might as well come in. Looks like you got here just in time. Before I could even step inside, the sky cracked open and rain poured down like a damn waterfall. Michelle laughed, shaking her head, water droplets catching in her soft golden hair. Guess you're stuck here for a while, huh? I wasn't mad about it. She stepped aside, and as I walked in, I could feel the warmth of her body just inches away. The house felt different. It was just us, quiet, intimate. The smell of vanilla candles mixed with the faint aroma of rain-soaked fabric. My shirt clung to me, drenched from the downpour, and I noticed the way Michelle's eyes flickered over me, a small smile playing at her lips. You're soaked. Let me get you a towel, she said, but there was something else in her voice, something that sent a shiver down my spine. She walked ahead of me, the silk of her robe catching the soft glow of the dim lights. I followed her, feeling a tension thick enough to cut with a knife. My breath was steady, but my heart was anything but. And then, just as she handed me the towel, her fingers brushed against mine, a touch that lingered just a second too long. I wasn't imagining things. Not this time. We settled into the living room, her presence so close I could feel the warmth of her body next to mine. She poured wine, her delicate fingers wrapping around the glass as she handed it to me, her touch lingering just long enough to send a shiver down my spine. We talked about life, love, and everything in between, but my mind drifted. The storm outside made everything feel cozier, closer, more private. Her robe slipped slightly as she adjusted her position, revealing the smooth curve of her shoulder, and I felt my pulse stutter. The flickering candlelight cast soft shadows over her delicate features, making her look even more breathtaking. And then it happened. Her knee brushed mine. Not an accident. The warmth of her skin sent a jolt of electricity through me. Her eyes met mine, lingering heavy with something unspoken. There was a challenge in her gaze, an invitation, a test of how far this moment could go. You're awfully quiet, Jason, she murmured, tilting her head slightly, a playful smirk dancing on her lips. Her voice was smooth, sultry, the kind that made you lean in instinctively. Something on your mind? I swallowed hard, gripping the wine glass tighter than necessary. Didn't expect to be here like this, just the two of us. She leaned back into the couch, crossing her legs slowly, deliberately, her silk robe parting just enough to tease a glimpse of bare, smooth skin. My breath caught. I wanted to touch her. God, I wanted her. "I think it's nice," she whispered, her voice dripping like honey, each syllable rolling off her tongue with deliberate ease. "Ethan's always so busy these days. It's been a while since I had some real company." The air between us shifted, the room suddenly feeling smaller, the heat of the fire flickering nearby doing nothing to match the fire building inside me. The tension thickened, heavy, undeniable. My heart pounded as she reached for her wine glass, taking a slow sip, her lips wrapping around the rim with a deliberate sensuality that made my pulse skyrocket. Then she set it down and leaned in, her fingers grazing my wrist just slightly, her breath warm as she whispered, "You know, Jason, I've always thought you were a very charming young man." The words hung between us, charged, electric. I didn't even think, I just moved. My hand found her thigh, warm, smooth, and inviting, her skin like silk beneath my fingertips. Her breath hitched, her eyes fluttering shut for a split second, and then she was kissing me, soft at first, testing, teasing, her lips parting just enough for me to taste the wine still lingering there. The heat between us surged as my fingers tightened around her waist, pulling her closer, the soft scent of her perfume drowning me in desire. She let out a soft moan as I deepened the kiss, my hands tracing the curve of her waist, fingers sliding beneath the silk of her robe, feeling the rapid rise and fall of her chest against mine. Her hands wandered up my arms, nails raking lightly against my skin, sending a sharp thrill down my spine. Her robe slipped further down her shoulder, revealing more of the soft, tempting curve of her body. "God, Michelle," I whispered against her lips, my fingers slipping higher, grazing the soft skin of her inner thigh, feeling the heat of her body pull me in, as if she had been waiting for this as long as I had. She shuddered beneath my touch, pressing closer, her lips parting as a sigh escaped. There was no hesitation, no second guessing, just the unspoken hunger that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. She let out a soft moan, her hands slipping under my shirt, nails raking against my skin, making me ache for more. The world outside disappeared, the rain, the storm, everything. All that mattered was her. Her lips traveled down my neck, hot and urgent, her breath sending shivers across my skin. My hands explored her curves, sliding under the silk of her robe, feeling the heat radiating from her body. She gasped when my fingertips grazed her bare thigh, parting slightly to pull me in closer. Her robe loosened further, exposing the smooth expanse of her back as she pressed against me, our bodies molding together like they had always belonged. We barely made it down the hallway before she grabbed my hand and led me to her bedroom. The second the door clicked shut, she turned to me, eyes dark with hunger. The dim glow of the bedside lamp bathed her in golden light, making her look ethereal, untouchable. But I was about to prove that wrong. She leaned against the bed, her silk robe slipping from her shoulders, revealing soft, tempting skin. My fingers traced slow, teasing lines down her arm, her breath hitching as she reached for me. "You sure about this?" I murmured, cupping her cheek, my thumb brushing over her parted lips. She licked her lips, pulling me closer. "I've never been more sure of anything." That was all I needed. The night was a blur of heat and tangled sheets, whispered confessions and stolen moments. Her touch was fire, her body a language I had been dying to learn. The way she responded to my every kiss, every movement, made my head spin. She arched against me, her hands gripping my back, nails leaving delicious trails of sensation in their wake. Her whispered moans became my favorite melody, the way her fingers tangled in my hair, tugging me deeper into the madness of the moment. Time didn't exist. There was only us, the slow, intoxicating rhythm we created together, the desperate hunger of two people who had crossed a line and had no intention of going back. But just as the sun started to rise, just as we lay breathless and tangled in each other's arms, my fingers lazily tracing the curve of her hip, the sound of a car pulling up sent a shockwave through my chest. "Is that?" I started, my body still humming with satisfaction, but Michelle was already scrambling out of bed, the reality crashing down around us like ice water. The front door opened. Ethan was home. Michelle's breath hitched, her wide eyes darting toward the window as panic flickered across her face. "Jason, hide," she hissed, her fingers gripping my arm, nails digging slightly into my skin. I barely had time to dive into the closet before I heard his voice, his footsteps echoing through the house. "Mom, you here?" Ethan called out, his voice casual, unaware. "I brought some snacks, thought we could hang out." I pressed my back against the wooden paneling, struggling to steady my breath. Michelle adjusted her robe hastily, running a hand through her tousled hair as she took a deep breath before stepping out into the hallway. "Hey, sweetheart, you're home early," she called back smoothly, her voice a perfect mask of control. "Yeah, storm let up, figured I'd surprise you." I shifted inside the closet, straining to hear, my pulse a deafening drum in my ears. Through the narrow slats of the door, I could make out Michelle standing by the kitchen, her hands gripping the counter as if holding herself together. "That's sweet of you," she said, clearing her throat. Let me put some coffee on." Ethan laughed. "Mom, are you okay? You sound kind of weird." "Oh, buddy, if only you knew." Michelle let out a forced chuckle. "I just wasn't expecting you, that's all. I thought I had a quiet morning to myself." I swallowed hard. My body was still burning with the imprint of her touch, my skin tingling where her lips had been just moments before. The closet suddenly felt unbearably small, the heat from my own body suffocating. "Oh, sorry," Ethan said. "I should have called." No, Michelle replied quickly, waving him off. "I'm glad you're here." I could hear him shuffling around, setting down bags, oblivious to the absolute chaos just barely hidden behind a wooden door. I exhaled silently, knowing I had just crossed a line I could never uncross. And the worst part, I didn't regret a damn thing. So, what would you have done? Would you have walked away or given in to temptation? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you want to hear more forbidden, steamy confessions, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming next.